right, the first one here, 22. We have 300x squared minus 100x. All right, so we're first going to look at our numbers. Between 300 and 100, what's my greatest common factor? 100. Between my x squared and my x, which is the one I can take out? It's going to be the lowest, right? X. So we have 300 divided by 100 gives us 3. We started with 2 x's. We took out 1. We have 1. 100 divided by 100 is 1. I started with 1x. I took it out. It no longer has any x's. All right, number 26. We started out with 20a cubed x plus 50ax plus 10x. So the first thing we're going to do is look at our numbers. Between 20, 50, and 10, what's my greatest common factor? 10. Yeah, 10 comes out of all of them. A cubed, A, and no A. Can I take one out? I cannot. Why can't I take an A out? My last term doesn't have an A to give me, so I can't take an A out. What about X's? Can I take one of those out? Yes, I can take one of those out. All right, 20 divided by 10 gives me what? 2. I did not take any A's out, so all 3 stay. It started with 1x. I took one out. No x's are left. 50 divided by 10 is 5. I didn't take any A's out, but I did take that 1x out. 10 divided by 10 is 1. I took the x out. So far, so good? All right. Number 32. For number 32, they give us kind of factored. We have 4y times the quantity 2y minus 1 minus 3 times the quantity 2y minus 1. We're now looking at the entire group here. So I look at what's in common here. What's in common is actually that 2y minus 1. So I'm going to take the 2y minus 1 out. And what do I have left over? I have the 4y here and the minus 3 here. All right. Let's check your answers here. All right. For the first one, you should get x squared plus 3x plus 2. X squared minus 4x minus 21. X squared minus 2x minus 24. X squared minus 8x plus 15, and 6x squared plus 10x minus 4. How did we do? All right, so from your bell work, you hopefully remember the FOIL method. We're on page 409, by the way, in your books, 409. And so they give us this example, x plus 5, x plus 7. And what I want you to do is I want you to pay attention to where these numbers come from. Where these numbers come from. So this first number, or first term rather, and your final answer, this first term and your final answer here came from the multiplication of your first terms. In the term FOIL, your first term came from your first term when you finally get your answer. All right? In the FOIL method, your last term, that 35, comes from your last terms. So that's easy, right? I mean, the x and the x gave you the x squared, the 5 and the 7 gave you the 35. What gets a little tricky is how do we get that middle term? The middle term comes from your two middles, your inner and your outer, okay? And so my inner term, or my outer term rather, was x times 7, 7x. My inner term was 5 times x, 5x. Those are like terms. So I added those together, and that is like where I get my 12x. All right? And so when we start doing factoring, we're actually going to be given the trinomial. We're going to be given the x squared, 12x, and 35. And we are going to work our way all the way up to the two binomials. Okay, so we're working backwards now. For bell work, you were given two binomials, and your answer was the trinomial. Now you're going to be given the trinomial, and the answer is going to be the factoring. All right, so think about it in elementary school. You learn multiplication, and then you learn division. And so that's what we're doing. We're working backwards. All right, so then you have to start thinking about, if I am going to be given the trinomial, I have to think about factors of these numbers and how they work together. How they work together. All right, so let's look at this first example. All right, they give us the rules. Write the factors of the first term, find the factors of the constant term, and then figure out how they work together to give you the middle term. All right, so the first type of things we're going to be doing is we are going to be doing with all of our leading coefficients are going to be 1 at first, okay? And so to start out with, we only have to look at the last term, really, okay? And so let's start out. We're going to create two parentheses, two sets of parentheses here, okay? My first term is x squared. So that has to be the product of my first terms. X squared only has two factors, x and x. That's all I can do there, right? To get to x squared. So I know I'm going to have an x and an x there, because my first term, which is x squared, has to be a product of my first in my foiling. And the only terms I have for x squared are x and x, all right? And now we're going to get to 6, all right? Now the first thing I want you to pay attention to is that 6 is positive, all right? So in positive, I multiply to get a positive number two different ways. What are the two ways I can multiply to get a positive number? Right. So positive and a negative and a negative. Positive, positive, negative, negative. That's how it has to be to get a positive 6. Now 6 is not prime, meaning I have multiple sets of numbers that I could get to here. What I do know is they have to be the same sign because 6 is positive. So when I look at all my factors of 6, I could multiply 1 and 6, yes? Or I can multiply -1 and -6. Would that give me a positive 6 for my last? Yes, it would. I can multiply 2 and 3, or -2 and -3. Would that also give me a positive 6? So these are really my only options here to get positive 6 in the last. What I now need to decide is which of those are going to add. Remember, my middle term is the sum of those. Which of those are going to add up to give me my middle term here? So my goal is to find the terms that will multiply to give me my last term and add to give me my middle term. That is my goal. Okay, everybody see that? And so I have found that -2 and -3 will multiply to give me -6, and it will add to give me -5. So those are my correct ones. -2, -3. That is the factoring. Do you think there's a way I could possibly check this?
Just solve it.
Foil it. Yeah, foil it, all right? And so if I'm going to check, now this is your checking, this is not part of your solving. I tell you that so that you don't check it and then give me your answer as your checked thing. To check it, you can just FOIL it. X minus 2, x minus 3, FOIL. X times x is x squared. X times -3, -3x. -2 times x, -2x. -2 times -3, positive 6. Combine your like terms, x squared minus 5x plus 6. Yes, that is correct. All right, we're going to do several of these. All right, let's look at example 2. Let's look at example 2 here. This is almost the same exact thing, is it not? We have a 1, a 5, and a 6. So why would the factoring not be the same? My signs are different. Last time I had -2, -3. If I multiply -2, -3, will I get -6? I will not, all right? So I'm still going to look at my factors of y squared. That's very simple. My only options are y and y. That's it, right? But now, to get a negative 6, one of them has to be positive and one of them has to be negative. Yes? So my options are positive 1 and negative 6, negative 1 and positive 6, positive 2 and negative 3, negative 3 and positive 2. Those are my only options to get negative 6, correct? I need one set of those that will give me that negative 6 and also give me a positive 5 when I add them. Which one's going to give me a positive 5 when I add them?
Positive 2, negative 6. No.
It's positive.
Negative 1.
Oh, here we go.
This one is good.
Negative 1 and positive 6. Does everybody see? All right, so when your last term is negative, you're going to use a positive and negative. And your middle term will really follow the larger of the two. Really is what's happening, right? All right, so positive, negative. And so basically you're looking to see which way is it going to match up to give me the right thing. So yes, minus 1 and plus 6. That is my answer. Y minus 1, Y plus 6. And again, you can check it. You can check it by foiling it. Y minus 1, Y plus 6. My first term is Y squared plus 6Y minus 1Y minus 6. When I combine those terms, I get a positive 5Y and negative 6. Yes, that is my answer. Everybody see what we're doing here? All right, let's look at the next one. This is some little tricks of the trade. If the sign of C is positive, then that means my signs are the same. Both positive or both negative. And whatever that middle term is tells me which one they are. So if my C is positive, I'm going to either have 2 positives or 2 negatives, and I can look at my middle term to decide if it's going to be 2 positives or 2 negatives. All right? And I'm looking for ones that are going to add up to give me that middle term. If my C is negative, I'm going to have 1 positive and 1 negative. The larger of those will be what is the middle term there. The larger of those will follow the middle term. Okay? So let's look at this using this logic here. My last term is negative. So am I going to have the same sign or different signs? Different. So I'm still going to have x, but I'm going to have an x plus, and I'm going to have an x minus. Yes, that's the only way to get a negative 72. Now, I need factors of 72 that subtract, really, because one's going to be positive and one's negative, to give me 1. What 2 factors of 72 subtract to give me 1? That would give me 7. So let's look at these. If I wrote out all my factors of 72, I would be writing a lot, by the way. Don't make me do all of them, all right? But let's get to my more common ones. Let's see. I mean, 4 actually does too, doesn't it? 18, I think. 6 and 12. Now we're getting to. And 8 and 9. There we go. Something like that. All right? One's going to be positive and one's going to be negative, meaning I'm going to end up subtracting them. Yes? If one is positive and one is negative, you subtract. Correct? All right? The only ones that subtract to give me a 1, which is what I'm looking for, are these guys. All right? Yes? I want a positive 1. So if I did a negative 8 and a positive 9, that would work. How do I know it's not positive 8 and negative 9? That would still give me negative 72, wouldn't it? But what happens in the center if I do that? It's going to be a negative 1, right? I don't want a negative 1. I want a positive 1. So my larger term has to follow my middle term, okay? Meaning my larger, the 9, has to be positive here. Right? You can FOIL it to figure it out. X times x, that's x squared. X times negative 8, negative 8x. Positive 9 times x, positive 9x. Positive 9 times negative 8, negative 72. When you combine those, you do get your 1x. All right? Everybody see what we're doing? Let's look at the next one. X squared plus 3x plus 6. My 6 is positive. My only options are same sign, all right? My 6 is positive, meaning I have to have 2 positives or 2 negatives. So now I'm going to look at my middle term to decide what that is. my middle term to decide what that is. It's going to be positive, right? They gave me a prime. All right. What's the problem here? Let's write down all my factors of 6. I have 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. Yes? I should probably write those further apart because it looks like 16 and... So I have 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. To get a positive 6, they both have to be positive or both have to be negative. And my middle term is telling me they're both positive. Do any of those add up to 3? They don't. He's prime. Okay? He's prime. So there are going to be cases where you're given one of these and it does not work and it is prime. It's not factorable. It is not factorable. All right? Number 1. Same sign or different sign? Same. How do we know that? 15 is positive. Which sign? Plus or minus? Plus. All right? So I know that I'm going to have a plus for both of these. I need factors of 15 that add up to 8. What are they? 3 and 5. Order does not matter, by the way. A plus 3, A plus 5 is the same thing as A plus 5, A plus 3. Order does not matter. It's multiplication. As long as you have a plus 3 and a plus 5, you're good. Okay? Number 5, signs. They are different. We know that because it's a negative 20, right? A negative 20. So I'm going to have a B plus and a B minus. I need factors of 20 then that are different signs that add up to 1. 4 and 5. Which one's positive and which one's negative? Yeah, the 5 is positive, the 4 is negative. I know that because a positive 5 and a negative 4 give me a positive 1. A positive 1. Again, order doesn't matter. As long as the minus is with the 4 and the plus is with the 5, order does not matter. Okay? All right? Number 9. Both positive, both negative. From this, it says it should be both positive. Are there factors of 4 then that add up to 7? 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. What's the problem? Neither of those work. So what do we call this? Prime. All right. Number 11. What do your signs look like? Your 20 is positive. How do I get to a positive number when I multiply? Yeah, so it's either 2 negatives or 2 positives, right? They're the same to get positive 20. And then I look at this 9. I know they both have to be negative. Negative, negative. So I need factors of 20 that add up to give me 9. 4 and 5, specifically negative 4 and negative 5, will multiply to give me positive 20. And those will add to give me negative 9. Negative 4 and negative 5. So everybody see what we're doing? Hint. The very first step in factoring is doing what you did in the first section. So in the first section, you were not doing this whole unfoiling thing. All you were doing was looking for a greatest common factor. Okay? And so that is always the first step in factoring. The thing is, what I have been giving you in examples 1 through 4 didn't have any common factors. None of your individual monomials had a common factor between the 3 of them. And so when you start getting into larger factoring, you need to always look for that common factor. Is there a common factor should be the first question you ask yourself. And in this case, the answer is yes. What goes into 2, into 64, and into 288? 2. They're all even, right? So we know a 2 goes in there. And so my first step is to take a common factor out. Take a common factor out. 2 divided by 2 gives me my 1a squared. Minus, what's 64 divided by 2? 32. What's 288 divided by 2? And now I have something that looks more familiar. It's still big, but it is what it is. All right. Now, I honestly will not give you ones this big unless it happened to be 12 and 12 and it was something easy to see, like the center was 24 or something like that. All right. But in this case, they were not that nice. So just bear with them. They weren't that nice. All right, so factors then of 144. And so they start going through the factors of 144, and you'll see they listed them out. We have 1 and 144. We have 2 and 72. They did 3 and 48, and then they did 4 and 36. Are these factors going to be the same sign or different signs? My 144 is negative. So are they going to be the same sign or different signs? They're going to be different. So here's what this is going to look like when you have a common factor. Your 2 is going to stay out here, and you're still going to have 2 parentheses, okay? Your 2 will remain out there. Your 2 stays out there as part of your factoring, just like your greatest common factor did in section 1. I'm still going to start with my A's, and I've just determined that 1 is positive and 1 is negative, all right? These are my factors, but I need them to subtract to give me 32. Which of these subtract to give me 32?
4 and negative 36.
Yeah, these, and specifically I want a negative 32. So my larger one needs to be negative, right? My larger one needs to be negative. My smaller one needs to be positive. Again, I'm not going to try to give you factors that are like 4 and 36 just because I want you to be able to do these quickly. But when you have a greatest common factor, you take that out first and then you do your standard factoring just like we've been doing. All right? And so the one I picked out for you to do is a little bit smaller. All right? So take your common factor out first and get that trinomial, and then look at your last term, factors of that term that give you the middle term. Get your common factor out first. What do you notice about this one? There's an X and a Y, all right? And so here's the thing. The first term are factors of the first, the last are factors of the last. The middle guy has an X and a Y in it, which makes sense that it would. So when I set these up, I actually go ahead and just do, I know I'm going to have an X and a Y. Does everybody see why that would happen? Because when I multiply X times X, I'm going to get this X squared. When I multiply Y times Y, I'm going to get that Y squared. And when I multiply the X times Y, I'm going to get an XY common or like terms, and they will add up to have an XY. So when you see X and Y or A and B or whatever, and they're both squared on each end, just stick them in your parentheses. It's going to be there. And then you only have to worry about factors of 24 that add up to 11. That's all you have to worry about now. All right? Because your X and Y's kind of take care of themselves. So when I'm looking at this, I'm just going to do the same thing, and I'm just going to say, okay, look at the 24. It's positive. So what does that tell me about my signs? They're the same. Specifically, they're going to both be positive. Why do I know they're both positive then? The 11 is positive, right? So I automatically know I'm going to have an X plus and an X plus. I just have to figure out what's in front of my Y. And that comes my factors of 24. So factors of 24, I have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. I need 11. Which one of those give me 11 when I add them up? 3 and 8. So X plus 3Y, X plus 8Y. And I'm done.